So let's talk about Star Wars Episode 9. We've been talking a lot about Episode 8 for the past week or so, and I do have more Last Jedi videos coming, but I want to talk about the future of Star Wars and where we go from here. Now, I'm going to get into Last Jedi spoilers, so if you haven't seen the movie yet, warning, spoiler alert, we're going to talk about it here. Episode 9 is coming out in December of 2019. That's going to be a huge year for Disney. We've got Avengers 4, we've got Frozen 2, and we've got Star Wars Episode 9. These are huge franchises getting sequels. Disney will get richer like the people on Canto Bight. Now, I want to talk about this film and what we know. J.J. Abrams coming back, writing and directing the film. J.J., of course, directed Episode 7, The Force Awakens, with Lawrence Kasdan, and he's the one who created characters like Rey, Kylo Ren, Finn, Poe, Phasma, Maz Kanata, Snoke. Him, Michael Art, Lawrence Kasdan came together to create those new sequel trilogy characters. But with Episode 9, he has a new co-writer, and it's not Lawrence Kasdan, unfortunately. It's the guy who wrote Batman v Superman, and some people are very concerned about this because Batman v Superman has a lot of problems. But let's wait and see what happens, because some have blamed Snyder for the problems with that film, not so much Chris Terrio. And don't forget that Chris Terrio also wrote Argo, which is a great freaking movie. But the question is, where do we go from here? And again, this video is not going to be an opinion piece necessarily, because, I have been very critical of Last Jedi. Some folks love Last Jedi. Let's talk about where the story goes from here, because the situation is, no matter which way you slice it, Rian Johnson took the toys that J.J. Abrams created in Force Awakens and kind of tore them apart. We're going into Episode 9 with no Phasma, even though she may survive, believe it or not, because she survived last time, with no Supreme Leader Snoke, unless they come up with some weird reason to bring him back. No Carrie Fisher, because she passed away, so no Princess Leia. Obviously no Han Solo, and no Luke Skywalker, unless he comes in as a ghost, which he probably will. That's pretty easy to figure out. I think Luke has to be in this movie because as much as I love Billy D. Williams and Lando Calrissian, I don't know if that's enough nostalgia with Chewie to really capture the old school fans and bring them back. Because remember, if J.J. Abrams is going to be using nostalgia as the way to promote this movie, I'm not saying he will, like he did Force Awakens, then I don't know if Billy D. Williams, Lando Calrissian can carry the third film without somebody else like Luke. And obviously Chewie's there as well. So we've also heard, from Billy D, that he's not going to be in these movies. So that we're going to take that at face value and say he's not going to be there. I think the real question is, where do we go from here? We left Episode 8 with a very, very small band of rebels, because we can't think of a better word than that, because they went back to that word, the Resistance. It's Finn, Poe, Rey, Princess Leia, or General Leia, who's not going to be in Episode 9, the droids and Chewie, and a few other guys. Where's everybody else at? Where's Snap Wexley at? Admiral Akbar's dead. The Republic's been destroyed, Hosnian Prime. Where do we go? Leia sent a distress signal out from Crate, and nobody answered. So I know that the film teases like an uprising, especially with the broom kid at the end of the movie, where people around the galaxy are sensing that there has to be a rebellion against the First Order. But again, what I had trouble kind of figuring out is the First Order had just destroyed Hosnian Prime just a few days, or maybe even a few hours before the events of Last Jedi. So did the First Order really take over the galaxy that fast? That's always been something very weird with this movie. But okay, let's go there then. So the First Order has been slowly taking over the galaxy, converting star systems from the Republic to the First Order. That sort of makes sense. I wish they gave it more time. So perhaps with Episode 9, what I think definitely needs to happen is we have to have some form of a time skip, whether it be 6 months, 3 months, a year. Episode 9 should not begin right after Episode 8. I think that's a huge mistake, because if you put a time skip in there, it gives them a chance to explain possibly the passing of General Leia. She passed away. They could write that into the opening crawl. And also, I feel like both the Resistance/Rebellion and the First Order have to rebuild their militia, because their military has been crippled. In The Last Jedi, we saw two of the biggest ships in that armada. Snoke's ship was split in half by Vice Admiral Holdo, and then we saw at the beginning of the film the Dreadnought get destroyed. So The First Order's armada, as far as we know, and there may be a huge armada somewhere in the unknown region that Kylo Ren may have access to, the First Order armada, they're going to need more ships. And where are they going to get them from? Again, maybe Canto Bight, but the same thing goes for the Resistance. This whole movie, Last Jedi, the First Order was picking apart the freaking Resistance ships and killing and killing and killing and killing. The Resistance is really nothing at this point. So where do we go from here? There has to be a time skip to explain kind of both sides rebuilding their armies for this big climactic Star War, no pun intended, because J.J. Abrams said that Episode 9 is going to be the war of all wars. Where are they going to get the ships from? Is it from Canto Bight? Are there smugglers or Maz Kanata's pirates going to get involved there? Are they going to help out? Are we going to see prequel era ships come back that haven't been in use for years and years and years? Will we see droid armies get reactivated? There's all kinds of ways they could take this story, but I think that some time needs to pass for these events to unfold. Also, moving forward, Kylo Ren. Now, the thing about Kylo Ren's character is that Kylo Ren in episode 7 and 8 is very, very unstable. He is an unstable kid. You know, I hate to call him a kid, he's a 30-year-old man, but he's obviously got emotional issues, especially after these past two movies, killing all his father figures. Han Solo's gone, freaking Snoke is gone. You know, Luke was kind of a father figure. He didn't kill Luke, but still, you know. So going into this movie, you know, Kylo Ren's never been this brilliant military strategist like Supreme Leader Snoke was perceived to be. You know, Snoke seemed to have things pretty well in hand. You know, was a pretty good little war general. This guy, Kylo Ren, ordered all ships to attack the Falcon, which is an emotional response. So can Kylo Ren in this movie control his emotions, put them away, and really build up the First Order into being an actual threat? Or is it going to be more of him kind of reacting on his emotions and actually ruining the First Order? And then what's going to happen with Hux? Is he going to actually take more of a leadership role, or is he going to just be comic relief again? Let me know in the comments what you think about that. Now, let's look at the other side. Rey. Now, with Rey, she has the Jedi text. She has the broken lightsaber that was Anakin Skywalker's. I do predict that she's going to make that into a double-bladed lightsaber, sort of like how she has her staff. I do think she's going to reconvert that into it. But here's the question. If time goes by, are they going to have Rey get stronger with the Force and still be the Last Jedi? Or by the time Episode 9 begins, will she have a school already set up with Force sensitives like the Broom Kid? Like, you could always start this movie, if it's a year later, you could start this film legitimately with Rey and a few students going up against Kylo and, of course, the Knights of Ren, which I think the Knights of Ren have to be in Episode 9. We saw them in Episode 7. No mention of them in Last Jedi. I think Kylo still has the Knights of Ren in his back pocket, and they're going to sort of be like what the Praetorian Guards were to Snoke. Like, maybe they can protect Kylo, but also be his homies. You know, and that could end up leading to a big battle at the end of the film where it's Rey and her Jedi students against Kylo and the Knights of Ren. And I totally see that being the case because we are going to end this saga with a huge lightsaber fight. And I'll bet you JJ is going to try and top not only the one in Return of the Jedi, but also the one in Revenge of the Sith. I think he's going to do an epically long, exhausting lightsaber fight with Rey and Ren. I just don't see this coming out any different. It's just something that's going to happen, and I refuse to believe otherwise because it's Star Wars, and he knows that you have to end the saga with Rey probably trying to redeem Kylo, but we're not really sure where they're going to go with that. He's either going to die, get redeemed, or get redeemed and die. Take your pick as to which one you want, but when you have a hero, or a villain that is, who does so many bad things, and he gets redeemed, there's nowhere he can really go except death after that. You know what I mean? So I don't see the Skywalkers making it out of this trilogy at all, and he is the last Skywalker. So there's that. Now, what about some of the other characters? Well, obviously, I feel like Poe is going to take a stand as being the leader of the rebellion. He's going to take over Leia's spot because Carrie Fisher's no longer with us anymore, and I think that Poe Dameron, his whole character arc is that he's going to end up eventually being the leader after, of course, being, I guess, mentored by these other people like Leia and Holdo and whatnot. So he's going to be the leader of the rebellion. Him and Maz Kanata are probably going to work together. Now, of course, that begs the question, where does that leave Finn and Rose? Because I feel like Finn's character arc was completed in Last Jedi. He defeated Phasma. He was going to sacrifice himself for the Resistance, and then Rose stopped it in a very weird scene. Where does that go? Does their romance become an actual thing? Are we going to care? Who's going to be his enemy? I've seen some people bring up the fact that maybe DJ, Benicio del Toro, could end up being his enemy, but I have a weird feeling that with DJ, he may end up switching sides again and going back to the good side, sort of like what Lando did in Jedi. The Return of the Jedi, that is. So they could do that as well. It's just very difficult to see if that's going to happen because we don't even know if DJ is even coming back for this movie. The problem with Episode 9 is that they literally hit the reset button here in that they're going to have to rebuild everything, and we're kind of sort of back to where we were even before Force Awakens, even before A New Hope in some ways, where it's the First Order doesn't seem to have that much of an army, or at least it hasn't been shown to us, and the resistance is very, very small. So it'll be up to Rey to sort of figure out the Force, figure out what she's going to do, and then close this chapter in Episode 9. I mean, it could end up being a legitimate 2.5 hour movie like Last Jedi, or maybe even a 3-hour movie, because there's so much for them to cram in here and so many storylines they have to conclude that I feel like it's going to be very interesting. A very, very hard job on J.J. Abrams, especially after the backlash behind this film. 69% drop in weekend number 2 for Last Jedi. Huge, huge drop there. And you can't even blame diminishing returns because Marvel puts out 3 movies a year and they all do pretty well. Star Wars, people were definitely turned off by this movie. Don't let anybody fool you. This movie turned people off. So JJ has to somehow please the ones who didn't like Last Jedi, please the ones who did like Last Jedi, the young fans, Disney, the old fans, Bob Iger, Kathleen Kennedy. This dude has a huge task ahead of him. And I wonder if he can do it. He's not the best director in Hollywood. He's had a couple films that I thought were subpar. He's good, don't get me wrong. Not the best, though. What can JJ bring to the table with Episode 9 that will close out this trilogy in a satisfactory way? That will be the big mystery. Also, as far as Luke Skywalker goes, I'm going to go ahead and predict that in Episode 9, his character is going to be haunting Kylo Ren based on what he told him at the end of Episode 8. See you around, kid. You know, I'm never going to leave you. I think in this movie, Kylo Ren's going to be very, very conflicted still, and he'll be feeling very lonely because everybody who he cares about or who cared about him is gone. Kind of like how Rey was warning him, you know, your father cared about you, why'd you kill him? That's what's going on with Kylo Ren, is that he's going to be so lonely, he may actually be victorious, and the First Order for a time, not for the whole movie, may be in control of the galaxy, but what good is that if you have nobody? Except for what? Hux, the slime ball, which Snoke already said is good to keep around, and that's it, and you know Hux doesn't like Kylo and vice versa, so it's going to be an interesting film, whether it's good or bad, going forward as to what direction they take in Star Wars. What do you think? What can they do now to wrap up this franchise and make it, not the franchise, to wrap up this trilogy, the Skywalker saga, and make it interesting? Will Kylo be redeemed? Will he go down in history as the most successful Skywalker? Because if he rules the galaxy, Vader couldn't even do that. I mean, he sort of did, but the Emperor was the one in charge. Now he, Kylo Ren, is the supreme leader. Where can this story go? And is JJ the right filmmaker to pick up the pieces from Rian Johnson and even from his own film? Let me know. Thank you. Talk to y'all soon.